At 5:53 in the morning, the automated collection belts on the first tier of a Kreider Farms laying house near Lancaster, Pennsylvania, begin their daily run. The house holds 900,000 hens. The belts run the full 500-foot length of the building, moving eggs from the cage rows toward the collection end where the transfer conveyor waits. A hen that laid her egg 40 minutes ago watches it travel away on the rubber surface. She will lay again in approximately 25 hours. The belt will collect that egg too. Lancaster County in early March carries a coal that arrives before sunrise and stays through the morning. The laying house interior holds 75 degrees Fahrenheit regardless. The environmental control system that manages temperature, ventilation, and lighting runs continuously, independent of what the Pennsylvania winter does outside the curtain walls. Kreider Farms manages approximately 6 million laying hens across multiple facilities in Lancaster County and surrounding regions. The operation processes over 5 million eggs daily through grading facilities capable of handling 360,000 eggs per hour. The company operates its own feed mill, its own pullet-growing facilities, and its own distribution fleet, a vertically integrated system that controls every stage between the chick that arrives at the pullet barn and the carton that arrives on the retail shelf. Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, Dutch country, one of the most historically agricultural counties in the United States, where family farming traditions run deep and where the industrial scale that Kreider Farms has built sits inside that agricultural heritage rather than replacing it. 5 million eggs every day here washed, graded, packaged, and distributed from a single regional operation. The commercial white leghorn that produces Kreider Farms' 5 million daily eggs is a bird selected across a century of genetic refinement for a single biological purpose, converting feed into unfertilized eggs at the maximum rate the hen's physiology allows. The wild ancestor of the domestic chicken produces eggs seasonally, perhaps 40 to 60 per year, are driven by day length and the evolutionary logic of raising a clutch to independence. The commercial leghorn that occupies Kreider Farms' Lancaster County laying houses produces 300 to 320 eggs per year. The breeding work that achieved that rate suppressed the seasonal sensitivity and compressed the laying cycle to the biological minimum, approximately 25 hours between eggs, with each egg requiring 20 hours of formation in the shell gland before it moves through the reproductive tract. The specific genetic lines Kreider Farms sources, highline white or Lohman white strains, produce pullets that reach laying readiness at 17 to 18 weeks of age. From that point through approximately 72 to 76 weeks of total age, they produce at the rates these genetics have been selected to deliver. The pullet-growing facilities that Kreider Farms operates in-house raise the replacement flocks that sustain 6 million hens in continuous production. The replacement math at 6 million hens is relentless. If the average flock cycles through the laying house in 60 to 65 weeks before replacement, Kreider must introduce approximately 5 to 6 million replacement pullets annually across its facilities. The pullet operation functions as a pipeline, day-old chicks entering one end, 17-week-old laying-ready pullets exiting the other, on a schedule precisely matched to the turnover of each laying house in the network. Kreider Farms operates 3 distinct housing systems across its Lancaster County facilities: conventional cage, cage-free, and organic, because the retail and institutional market it serves has fragmented along consumer preference and regulatory lines that a single housing system cannot satisfy. The conventional cage houses that form the operation's production base hold hens in wire battery cages arranged in multiple tiers, with automated feeders, nipple drinkers, and the collection belts that move eggs from each cage row toward the grading facility. Stocking density at approximately 67 square inches per hen allows the space efficiency that makes the per-egg fixed cost of conventional cage production lower than any alternative system. That space efficiency has become a regulatory and commercial liability. Pennsylvania has not enacted its own mandatory cage-free timeline, but the retail buyers Kreider Farms supplies, major grocery chains, institutional food service operators, egg distributors serving markets in states with cage-free mandates, have made cage-free purchasing commitments that require Kreider's supply portfolio to include cage-free product at specified percentages that grow annually. A cage-free house managing the same hen population as a conventional house requires significantly more floor space. Cage-free hens live on litter-covered floors with perches and nest boxes, requiring the horizontal space to move, express behavioral repertoire, and access both feed and water, without the density constraints that cage production uses. The capital investment that cage-free conversion requires, new buildings, new internal equipment, different ventilation configurations, runs to hundreds of dollars per hen position being added. At Kreider's scale, the transition represents a capital program that the premium retail pricing for cage-free eggs must support over years rather than months. The organic production system adds the feed sourcing requirement that cage-free does not mandate. Every feed ingredient must come from certified organic sources. No synthetic pesticides, no GMO crops, no synthetic fertilizers in the field that grew the grain. Organic corn and soybean meal trade at 2 to 3 times conventional commodity prices. The organic egg premium at retail compensates for this, but only when the production system certification is continuous and the documentation chain from organic field to Kreider's feed mill to the laying house to the graded egg carton is complete and auditable. USDA National Organic Program certification requires third-party inspection at least annually, and the record-keeping infrastructure that supports an audit trail. At 6 million total hens across 3 production systems, Kreider's certification management tracks which flocks are on organic certified rations, which facilities carry organic certification, and which eggs entering the grading facility carry the organic designation that the carton label will claim. The feed mill that Kreider Farms operates as part of its vertical integration supplies the rations that sustain 6 million hens in continuous production. A laying hen's daily feed requirement runs approximately 0.25 pounds. At 6 million hens, a daily feed demand across the full system reaches 1.5 million pounds, 750 tons per day. The feed mill must produce and deliver this volume on schedules matched to each laying facility's consumption rate, which changes as flocks move through age and production phases. Layer ration formulation for commercial production centers on 2 nutritional constraints that cereal grain alone cannot satisfy. calcium at 3.5 to 4% of the total diet. Ours provides the 2 grams per eggshell that a hen laying 300 plus eggs annually must deposit, a calcium throughput that the hen's skeletal stores cannot sustain without continuous dietary supply. The limestone and oyster shell that provide this calcium make up a large fraction of the total ration volume. Vitamin D3, required for calcium absorption from the intestine, must be supplemented because laying house hens have no ultraviolet light exposure that would allow endogenous synthesis. A flock deficient in vitamin D3 shows declining shell quality before any other clinical sign appears. Shells thin progressively, breakage on the collection belt increases, and the grading line's candling system flags a rising percentage of checked eggs. By the time the grading data identifies the trend, 2 to 3 weeks of production may have already been affected. The protein and amino acid fraction of the ration, particularly methionine, determines egg size. When Kreider's grading data shows the current flock producing a higher proportion of medium eggs than the market requires, the feed mill can adjust the ration's amino acid profile to shift production toward the large grade over the following 2 to 3 weeks. Feed formulation is a production management tool that connects the nutritional specification in the mill to the grade distribution data coming off the grading line, or the grading facility that receives eggs from Kreider Farms' multiple laying houses and processes them at 360,000 per hour, is the industrial core of the operation, where the biological output of 6 million hens becomes the consumer product that retail and food service buyers specify. Eggs arriving at the grading facility by conveyor from nearby houses or by transfer vehicle from more distant facilities enter the washing system first. USDA regulations specify washing parameters that prevent the contamination risk that temperature gradients create. Wash water must be at least 20 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the egg surface temperature, which prevents the thermal contraction that would otherwise draw surface bacteria through the shell's 17,000 microscopic pores. Detergent and sanitizer at approved concentrations in the wash water address surface bacterial load. A properly washed egg exits the washer with a sanitized surface ready for candling and grading. Automated candling follows the wash. The candling inspection that early egg operations performed by holding each egg over a candle flame, observing the shadow of the interior through the translucent shell, runs on modern high-speed lines through camera and sensor arrays that image each egg at multiple wavelengths simultaneously. The system detects surface cracks that would compromise shell integrity and accelerate microbial contamination. It identifies blood spots and meat spots in the albumin or on the yolk surface. It measures air cell size, the air space at the broad end of the egg that grows as the egg ages, providing the freshness indicator that USDA grade standards use to distinguish AA, A, and B quality grades. At 360,000 eggs per hour, the candling system makes and records quality determinations at 100 eggs per second. Eggs that fail the quality threshold route to the off-grade stream. Eggs that pass move to the weight grader. The weight grader routes each egg to the packaging lane corresponding to its USDA size class. Jumbo at 30 ounces per dozen, extra large at 27, large at 24, medium at 21. At 100 eggs per second, The weight grader executes 6,000 routing decisions per minute. The packaging machinery at each size lane fills cartons, 12-egg retail, 18-egg club store format, 30-egg flat for food service, at speeds matched to the grading line's output. A packaging machine that cannot keep pace with the grader's output creates a backup that eventually forces a line slow down. The integration of grading speed and packaging speed is engineered to match. The grading line throughput and the packaging capacity represent a single system, not two independent operations. The distribution fleet that Kreider Farms operates as the final stage of its vertical integration moves fresh eggs from the grading facility to retail and food service customers across Pennsylvania and the surrounding regional market. Lancaster County's geographic position, within 150 miles of Philadelphia, Baltimore, New York, and Washington, places Kreider Farms grading facility at the center of one of the densest consumer markets in the United States. A refrigerated truck departing the distribution dock in Lancaster reaches a Philadelphia grocery distribution center in 75 minutes. It reaches Baltimore in 90 minutes. The geographic proximity that Lancaster County's agricultural heritage created, farms established close to the population centers that historically bought their products, now serves a modern distribution network where freshness and speed of delivery define competitive position. The cold chain that Kreider Farms distribution fleet maintains from grading facility to retail cooler requires refrigeration at 45 degrees Fahrenheit or below from the point the washed egg exits the grading line. Electronic temperature loggers in the distribution trucks create the continuous temperature record that retail customers verify at receiving. An egg that spent 2 hours in a truck that warmed above specification during a loading delay has not been stored improperly in any way the consumer could detect. But the documentation gap that would create in a retailer's receiving system makes the operational discipline around cold chain maintenance a commercial requirement rather than a merely regulatory one. The avian influenza risk that Kreider Farms manages across 6 million hens spread across multiple Lancaster County facilities is the biological threat that the operation's biosecurity infrastructure addresses continuously. Highly pathogenic avian influenza kills infected flocks at near 100% mortality within 24 to 48 hours of the first clinical signs. The 2022 to 2023 HPA-I outbreak that killed approximately 58 million birds across the United States struck Pennsylvania's poultry operations alongside the Midwest's commercial turkey and layer flocks. Lancaster County's agricultural density, layer operations, broiler operations, and the small farm poultry that the Pennsylvania Dutch community keeps creates an HPA-I introduction risk profile that the county's large commercial operations manage with biosecurity protocols calibrated to that density. So Kreider Farms' biosecurity measures include vehicle sanitation at facility perimeters, personnel shower-in requirements at high biosecurity zones, wild bird exclusion through screened ventilation and structural maintenance, visitor restrictions, and the mortality monitoring that detects unusual flock death rates before they reach reportable levels. At Lancaster County's wild bird population, the waterfowl and shorebirds that move through Pennsylvania's flyways during spring and fall migration, carries HPA-I without clinical disease and sheds it in feces that land on facility surroundings during peak migration periods. A confirmed HPAI detection at a Kreider facility holding 900,000 hens triggers mandatory USDA depopulation of the entire flock at that site. The financial consequence? The birds, the egg inventory, the weeks of lost production during cleanout, disinfection, and the waiting period before repopulation is permitted is measured in millions of dollars per site. The biosecurity investment that attempts to prevent that event is not a regulatory compliance exercise. It is the operational hedge against a biological risk that no insurance fully covers. 5 million eggs per day, 6 million hens, 3 production systems, 1 Lancaster County operation. The Kreider Farms that processes this volume grew from a much smaller Pennsylvania egg operation through decades of investment decisions that the family ownership made consistently in the same direction. More laying capacity, own the feed mill, own the pullet operation, own the distribution trucks. Each decision captured a margin that previously went to a supplier or a contractor. Each decision added operational complexity that the next decision had to manage. The result is a vertically integrated system whose scale would have been unimaginable to the Lancaster County egg farmers of 3 generations ago, operating on the same Pennsylvania agricultural land where egg farming has always made geographic sense, close to feed grains, close to dense consumer markets, in a climate that supports year-round production without the extreme heat stress of the southeastern states or the extreme cold of the northern plains. At 5:53 in the morning, the collection belt started its run. By 6:30, the first eggs from that house will reach the grading facility. By 10 a.m., they will be washed, candled, graded, and packaged. By this afternoon, a distribution truck will carry them toward a Philadelphia grocery distribution center 75 miles east. By tomorrow morning, the belt will start again, 5 million times. If this detailed look at the housing systems, grading technology, feed operation, distribution logistics, and biosecurity infrastructure behind one of Pennsylvania's largest egg operations gave you a clearer picture of what industrial-scale egg production looks like in Lancaster County. Hit the like button and help the algorithm reach more viewers who want this level of detail. Subscribe for more deep dives into the farms, facilities, and supply chains behind everyday food. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. The geographic range of this audience continues to expand, and reading those locations matters to us every time.